Okay, so adding pages to your website. Some of the things I'm going to talk about are going to be new, some might be familiar, so keep in mind that there's multiple ways that you can go through adding a new page and adding content on the page. So as I go through this, you're welcome to do it on your site and create some temporary pages that you can later go back and delete just so you get some practice doing it. Or you can just watch what I'm doing up on the screen. So the first thing to note is that the Site Actions button no longer says Site Actions. Microsoft didn't know what to do with the Site Actions button. It started off on the right-hand side back in 2007. They moved it to the left-hand side in 2010. And then they decided it's still too easy for people to find the Site Actions button, so they took away the word Site Actions and just gave it this little gear, this wheel, and that's the Site Actions button. When you click on it though, you get the drop-down menu just like you did before for the Site Actions. And if you're going to add a new page, you could just select Add a Page.
What if you don't have all those options?
This may be a problem with your permissions. Did you tell them? Hey guys, he might still have problems with his permissions.
Rockley? Well, this one's Ivy Lane.
Ivy Lane?
Yeah, I don't have all the permissions.
What's cool?
Ivy Lane.
I'll check Rockley.
You can go this before to the other.
When you click on Add a Page, you're going to get a dialog box that'll prompt you for the name of the page. And I'm just going to use my initials for the name of the page so I can go back and delete this later, because it's the site we use for all the trainings. And then click Create to create the page. Now when the page gets created, it's going to assume that you want just a single text area. Within that text area, you can type in text directly. For instance, just typing in the text right into the text area. You don't need to add a content editor web part first. You can just go right into the text area and just start typing directly. You can also come up to the Insert ribbon, and you can insert tables, other pictures, video and audio, although we'll talk a little bit later about the fact that we don't have a good way of storing audio and video on our servers because they do not stream. And what we're recommending people do is to put things up in YouTube, especially videos. And every school has a YouTube site. If you're not familiar with the fact that you have a YouTube site, talk to Hector before you leave today, and he can tell you how to get to your YouTube site. You can also add other links to other pages, whether they're inside your site or outside of your site, and then the traditional way of just adding app parts or web parts. We're going to just start off right now just having the text in the area at the top. So as I was saying, this is one way that you can put in text on the screen. If I go back to the Formatting Text tab, there's an option here called Text Layout. When you click on the Text Layout button, you get a drop down which shows you that there are other available layouts. The default one was the one column one, and it would keep expanding as I typed. It's not going to limit you to that small box that you see currently. It'll just keep expanding. But you can have a one column with a sidebar, small little narrow section on the right hand side. You can go with a two column layout, two column with a header, two column with a footer and header, a three column with header, and a three column with header and footer. So those are some of the built-in ones. And when you switch from one to the other, like if I go to the two column, you'll see that now there are two boxes, text areas. You can begin using any of the text areas and just type in text directly. I would recommend though selecting the text layout first before you start putting a lot of content in, because if you start with a more complex layout like this one and go back to a simpler layout like the one column, it's going to try to combine the information. It won't lose it, but it'll try to combine it. And then you may have difficulty trying to figure out exactly where do you want to put the content. It may not show up where you wanted it. And if you go back and forth between the two, notice it doesn't remember that it was in the second text box. And you'd have to actually select it, click on it, and drag it to move it back to where it was before. So the first thing to consider is how do you want to lay out the work area? And you can use these text layouts if you'd like. They're somewhat generic. If you want to do something a little bit more sophisticated, what you probably need to do is start looking at putting a table onto your page. So I'm going to come back here at this point. Actually, I'm going to go back to the one column so I have more space. In the insert ribbon, I'm going to go to the table drop down, and it's going to give you this grid where you can specify how many rows and how many columns you want to start with. You can always add more columns later. You can add more rows later. You can delete columns. You can delete rows. But it's a starting point for building out your table. In this case, I have a 4x4, and I'm just going to put a couple of headers across the top just so you know that the columns are there. And you could go further down and just add data in all the columns and rows. So it's sort of like a grid, sort of like an Excel spreadsheet grid. You're not going to have calculations between it, but it's a way of formatting the screen. If you wanted to publish this page, just save it. You'll notice that you still have the grid, very light formatting, but you do have the columns laid out. Let's say you don't like the fact that the grid is showing up. If I go back in and edit the page again, click in any of the cells within that table, come up to Design, go to Styles. And these are the different styles that are available, and as you hover over them, you see that it actually tries to change the style that's being displayed. If you go to the one that says Clear, though, and then save the page, now you don't see the grids anymore. Of course, when you want to go back and edit anything in the table, you're probably going to want to go back to Design. Maybe not that one. Select one of the other layouts so that you can see the lines, so that you can work within the table. Now, what I meant before about making it a little bit more complex, you can take any cell and you can merge it with an adjacent cell. So for instance, right now I'm in column 2, row 2. If I wanted to merge that with column 3, row 2, I can start here in the second column. And then what I want to do is go to the table layout, and under merge cells, I want to merge to the right. And you notice that the line between columns 2 and 3 disappeared. Now it's one large cell. If I wanted to merge with the 2 cells beneath, so I get an even larger area, maybe to put a graphic image, you might try to do something like merge cells and then say merge below. When you click on this, you're going to get an error. And the reason is that the first one has a larger area because it took up 2 cells, and the row below has individual cells yet. What you need to do is match what you've done. So I'm going to go into column 2, row 3, merge to the right. Now they're the same width. Then I can come back up to merge, and since I'm in row 3, I want to merge up. And now all those 4 cells are now a single cell. Once it's a single cell, maybe what you wanted to do is put a picture there. And you have the option of selecting a picture from the computer, from an address, or from SharePoint. Now, if you select something from the computer, it's going to actually upload that picture and put it into your image library anyway. So if you haven't done it before, it's a way that you can just pull the picture from your local drive and put it up into SharePoint as one step, one process. Same thing with getting an image from another address. It may try to put that image into SharePoint as well. The From SharePoint option has the advantage of clicking on that option, giving you a dialog box, letting you see what's available. And by default, it will automatically open up where the images are being stored on your site. You can select one of those images if you've previously uploaded it and insert it into those cells. So basically, at this point, now I have a table grid which has an image in the center, and I can put text all around it. I can put text along the side, left side, text along the right side, above and below. So if I wanted to put text on this side, I have two text areas that I can work with. On this side, maybe I want to merge these cells, so I want to merge down. So you can basically define the way you want the page to look. Again, before you save it, go to Design, Styles, clear the style, and then save the page. So you don't see the grid lines. Now, that's not a lot of text, and normally you would have paragraphs and everything, but my point is you can make a very complex layout by working with a table. And that was the traditional way under old HTML of creating what looked like complex pages by putting first a table on the page and then merging different cells together and then defining different areas to be images, some to be text, some to be maybe links, and just have links on certain parts. You would go in and custom define the way you wanted the page to look. So you really have two ways you can approach the layout of your page. You can either choose a text layout and just deal with these default options, or you can create maybe a one-column page and then use a table and then work with columns and rows and merging different columns and rows together to create a more complex layout. It's your choice. We don't care how you do it.
Can you start with a template and then edit that?
You can start with any of these page templates. If I wanted to go into one of the others, I could, and then you could add the table inside of it, yes. The reason I started with the one column is it gives me the full width of the page. When you start dealing with some of the other ones, like the 2 and the 3 column template, you're not going to have many columns to begin with. But yes, you can do it. Any questions about that portion? Okay.
So let me be devil advocate here. You're going to have some people that they're not going to feel comfortable because this is very new. They'll want to do it on a Word document and try to upload it. Will that work?
If you upload directly from a Word document, you could have formatting issues that will create blank spaces.
Gotcha, okay.
So we don't recommend doing that. I mean, I've done it on pages, but then I also go into the HTML and I fix any problems. If you don't know HTML, don't recommend it. And the problem is when you copy from Word, there's a lot of hidden formatting inside Word. And it actually is a lot more content than doing the table here when it puts the table in, which bloats out your page size. And if there are problems trying to read the HTML, you really do have to know HTML really well to be able to fix those problems. So I created the page by the traditional method of going to the Site Actions button. I'm going to come back into this page and I'm going to create below the table a link to a new page. And I'm going to just say I want to link to the math page. I'm going to put the term math page in square brackets. When I put the word math page in square brackets and save the page, it's going to come back and it's going to say math page and it's going to have a dotted underline. The dotted underline indicates that SharePoint cannot find that page. As far as it's concerned, it's a broken link. And it's no different whether you started off this way or whether you had a real link to a page and then someone deleted the page, you would still get a dotted underline then under those links. However, because of the way these pages are set up in collaboration, if you click on that link, that dotted underline link, it's going to ask you, do you want to add this page? Since it knows it doesn't exist, it's assuming that when you click on it, you want to create the page. In this case, yes, I do want to create the page, so I click on Create. And again, I get a default page just like I did by going to the gear, the Site Actions button, getting the drop down and selecting Add a Page. I'm just going to put a label at the top so I know which page this is. And like in any other pages, you can do any of the formatting that you want. And since this is internal facing, not out to the public, whatever formatting you want to do, it's up to you. We're not going to monitor the formatting and say, well, you didn't use the right color, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that. It's whatever you wind up doing. If you want to make the page look really ugly, be my guest. It's your page.
Okay, I'm sorry, but we're having technical difficulties, not user error. We didn't get the underline. What was that again?
Okay, when you typed it in, I said link to double square bracket math page.
Square, there you go.
And a double square bracket at the end, save the page.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
So from the math page, I want to create navigation back to the page that I came from. The navigation that you have on the top and along the side, generally for getting to your sites and subsites. If you want to have navigation between your pages, it's possible to add it to the navigation along the side, the left navigation, but a better choice is to build your navigation within the page. For instance, on your home page, we had the links along the right-hand side. It's a better choice for adding navigation between pages. But even here, where we want to have a way of getting back to the home page, instead of doing something along the right-hand side, since we don't have a separate sidebar column, we could just say return to, and then select the page that you want to go back to. And I jumped over this before because I didn't want to mention it at the time when I created the math page, but when you first type in the double square bracket to get started, what you get is a list of all the pages that are in the current site. So this site currently has 5 pages in it. There's a home page, a how to use this library page, the math page, which we just created, the MPA page, which I had just created, and the newsletters page. So in this case, from the math page, I want to go back to the page that's just MPA, my initials. So I come down, select it, and then you get another pop-up, and that pop-up just has a single option, and you might be wondering, why does it say the same thing? Well, every page has an alias name, or it can have an alias name. And the alias name is, what do you want the user to see? If you don't want them to see the initials, if you want them to see something else. For instance, let's say that this one is going to be grade 1. What you wind up having to do is you have to type a vertical bar. The vertical bar is the key above the return key or enter key. And you got to use the shift along with it. There's a slash if you just type it by itself. You have to use the shift to get the vertical bar. And then what you want. So if it was grade 1 and then close bracket, the double square close bracket, and then save. Now it says return to grade 1. And if I click on it, it goes back to the page that I labeled as MPA. So it's an alias. It's another way of referring to a page name. And if that makes more sense than the actual page name, because we like to keep page names short, generally, then you can have any text that you want inside the alias part.
And outside too, right?
Outside where?
Well, the double bracket is what causes it to become a link, right?
When you start with the left square bracket, the opening square brackets, the first thing it has to be is what is the page name, the real page name. Then the vertical bar, and then the alias, and then a double square bracket to close.
Yeah, but I mean, right here where it says link to.
Yeah.
The math page, link to the, could be anything, right?
Any text that you want.
Okay. So
That's just normal content.
when you did it the first time, I thought link was the one that made it
No.
link, but.
No. Has nothing to do with the fact that I said link. Because on the other page,
Yeah, you said return
I said return to. And no, it doesn't have anything to do with the word to either. It's the fact that when you format the string, this double square bracket is considered by SharePoint to be the key. Now, if for some reason you have content that begins with a double square bracket, you've got a problem. Because it's going to think it's going to start to open up a link. So at this point, I've created a link back to the page. What else can I do that's relatively easy? One of the things I could do is reference a document library or a list. So if I wanted to see all the documents in a library, I'm going to say show me the documents in and then a double square bracket. The two options down at the bottom that say list and view, which I skipped over before because they are not page names. Those are commands that will allow me to go out and look at a library or a list. As far as SharePoint's concerned, a library or a list are essentially the same thing. Library just actually having a file attached to it, whereas a list is just going to be columns of data. So what would we wind up picking to show a document library? It's not really obvious from this, but I'm going to give you a way to remember whether it's list or view. When you create a document library, when you create a list, what you display when you display that document library or that list is a view. You can have custom views, but every library and every list has a default view. For the library, it's called all documents. For a list, it's called all items. But if you want to go out and you want to create a custom view that only shows a subset of the documents, or maybe it's only going to show certain columns from that library or that list, those are custom views. So to display an entire library or an entire list, you have to use a view. So I'm going to come down and select view. Let's do that again, because I hit the return key instead. After I select view, it's going to give me in the dialog box that pops up every library and every list that are in the current site. So in this case, I want to go to the shared documents library. So I come down and click on shared documents, and now it's going to show me all the views that have been defined. And this library happened to have several views, not just the all documents view. It also has a view that will show me only the Word documents, because it's being filtered. A document or a view that will show me only the Excel documents, again, because it's being filtered on Excel, and so forth for the other three types. So if I select that I want to see only the Word documents, I select that view. And the last thing it's going to ask me for is what the alias should be, and by default, it's going to use the view name. And I'm going to let it be the view name for now, because I want to show you what it'll do when we come back and look at it. So I'm just going to press enter, which will close it off. I'm going to click save. And then when I look at the page and it says show me the documents in Word documents, click on the Word documents hyperlink, and now it's showing me all the Word documents in the shared documents library. You can have pretty much any number of views you can come up with. I've seen people have libraries with dozens of different views. You can have views that are assigned to specific people or specific types of people. You can have views that are assigned based upon the file name, or maybe you have some other definitions using metadata columns. And you can assign the view based upon those metadata values. We'll talk more about metadata values later. The point is you can have dozens of different views for any given library. Once you have the library open, and I'm going to pick on the first file here, and you click on it, I don't know if you caught it real quick, but it said it was opening it up within Word Web Apps. So right now this is actually being displayed, this document, which it only has a single word in it because we just want to do something quick. But it's displaying in Word Web Apps. It did not go to my desktop and open up Microsoft Word directly. This is what we meant before when we said that you can use this outside on any machine that has access to the internet, even if that machine doesn't have Microsoft Office installed on it. It'll open up inside Office web apps, which in this case, the specific type is Word Web App. So we have this single word here. If I want to make changes to the document, I can click on Edit Document, and I have the option, do I want to edit it in Word or edit it in Word Web App? Now, this is where I said before that almost anything can be viewed with the Office web apps, but sometimes you will not be able to edit the document, depending on how complex it is. This one, it's a single word, it's not going to be a problem. So it gives me both options, but in other cases, you'll only be able to edit in Word because it realizes that there's nothing you're going to do to that document to edit some of those functions. So I'm going to go to Edit in Word Web App. And this is what the online experience looks like. You'll notice that the tabs across the top for Word, well, you just don't get as many as you do in regular Office. And even if you open some of the drop downs, you see that they don't have as many options in any of the ribbons going across. They have some basic functionality, but it's not all the functionality in regular Word. So I'm going to just put in some other text there. So you type in whatever text you want. When you're done, go to File, Save. It remembers where you got the file from. It knows that it came from SharePoint, and it saved it back. I can close Word Web App by using the Close button, the Exit button, and it says that it was updated only a few seconds ago. In fact, if I try to open it again by clicking on it, you see it does have the text in. So you can use, for simple editing, you can use Word Web App for doing a lot of the simple editing. Before I show you something else, we created these pages. We created a page called MPA and also another page called Math. From the home page, there's no navigation to it. Those pages essentially are invisible. They're not truly invisible, but as far as someone just looking at your page design, there's no navigation to it. If you remember what we said earlier, the school links on the left-hand side or the right-hand side can be used to display any other page within your site or outside of your site. And we mentioned the fact that that is something that is edited by going to Site Contents, coming down to the list that corresponds to it, which in our case is school links, and then just adding a new link. Now it's going to ask you what is the URL of that page. And there's no button for you to go and search for it. So you're going to come back and you're going to say, well, I have no idea what the name of the page is. How do you get the name of the page? This is a trick that we tried to show a lot of people to use going forward, but some people, I don't know if they don't get it or they just are not just used to it yet, but you can have multiple tabs open to the same site. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to capture the current URL by clicking in the address bar and then pressing Control-C. Opening up a new tab for the browser, selecting the default whatever comes up as the default address, and then pasting the link from the other page. So now essentially I have two tabs that point to the same place. I'm going to use the second tab to be able to go back, navigate to the page that I want to look at. And I'm going to do that by going up to the Site Actions button, Site Contents, come down to Site Pages, and the page I want to link to first is going to be the MPA page. So I could open up the MPA page and get the link that way by selecting it, doing Control-C. I can also hover over MPA, right-click. You see an option that says Copy Shortcut. This works for pages, site libraries, any of your shared document libraries. Basically, this is the way you get the shortcut, the URL, to anything within your website. If you remember earlier, I said we don't want to attach documents to email addresses. If this were a shared document library, all you would do is select the file by hovering over it, right-clicking on the file name, clicking on Copy Shortcut, and then pasting that into your email, which will be a link, and they just have to click on the link to get to the document. So either way, you get the URL to the page that you want. Come back to the tab that it's still waiting for me to finish and put in what the web address is. Paste the web address into that box. Advantage of doing it this way is you don't have to type it in. There's no chance that you're going to type it in incorrectly. Spelling errors are going to cause more problems than anything else if you try typing it in directly. So just do the copy and paste. You can put a description in for the URL. It's optional. Same thing with notes. That's optional. Click Save. And now what you'll see is the link spelled out. That's what happens when you just use the defaults, because you said it was optional. I'm going to go back in. I'm going to fix that by clicking on Edit Item. You notice how for the description, it just took the address down. Put in the name of the page. So even though it's optional, it doesn't make you put something in. Strongly recommend that you put in the description. Click Save. And now it appears correctly, or at least the way I want it now. And it's at the bottom of the list. I don't mind that it's at the bottom of the list, because the way the page is constructed, it will automatically alphabetize all the links when it displays them. So now I have a link to the MPA page, which gives me a link to the math page, and so forth. So now I got all my pages set up correctly with navigation. I want to do one more thing in this math page, because we showed how to get to the entire library. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to look for a specific document. Again, I'm going to start with the double square bracket. But because
I'm sorry, how do I get back to where it says math page?
if you followed everything through, you should have a link now on your home page
On the home.
on the right-hand side under School Links that says whatever you put in as the description. And then from there, you should, if you were following along what was on that initial page, there was a link to the math page. So we're going to start with the double square bracket again. We're not going to go to a specific page. We're going to go to the list command, not the view command. When you click on list command, it's still going to ask you what library or what list you want to use. I'm going to select the shared documents. And now I'm getting a list of all the documents in that document library rather than views. So I select the document I want to display. Again, it's going to come back up and it's going to say, I need an alias, and it's going to use the document name, current document name, as that alias. If that's okay, all you have to do is press enter. Save the page. And now when it says show me one document and it has the document name and you click on it, it's going to try to open it up inside Word directly. And that's basically what it's trying to do at this point. It's saying, what do you want to do with this document, this DOCX? So we want to open it. And this will take a second or two because it actually has to open up Microsoft Word on your local desktop. And it's probably going to try to open it on my other screen. Yep, it just came up now on my other screen. So when it comes up on the other screen, it initially comes up in read-only mode. If you try to go in and start trying to make changes, it's not going to allow you to make any changes because it's read-only. But if you come on to the View drop-down, the View drop-down has an option to edit the document. And at that point, you can make changes to the document and then save the document. Now when you say save at this point, because Word's doing the save, it still remembers that you're getting the document from a SharePoint library, and it will show you what that SharePoint library looked like and all the other Word documents in that SharePoint library. But you can assign it a new name. If you keep the name, the initial name, it will overwrite it. So if I wanted to overwrite the existing file, just click Save. If I wanted to give it a different name, I can change the name a little bit and then click Save. And then close Word because I'm done working with it. Now if I were to go back and click on this option again, it would point to the original document, not the one with the changes. So I'm going to go back up instead to Word documents, the entire library. And you see down here there's a curriculum guide 2 and a curriculum guide. So because I gave it a different name when I saved it, it actually is a different link, a different URL to get to that document. This one goes back to the original. And I probably shouldn't have clicked on it because it'll take a moment for it to come up. So back to the original. So it depends on actually how you save the document. If you save it with the same name, it'll replace. If you save it with a new name, you're going to get multiple copies. Depends on what you're trying to do. So what I've tried to show you in this section is how to create new pages. You can create new pages two ways. One, you can begin by using the Site Actions button and say Add a Page. Now keep in mind that when you say Add a Page, you're adding a page to the current site that you're in. So if you want to add a page to Grade 1 subsite, you have to navigate to Grade 1 first. If you're in the top level of your school and you say add a page, that's where it's adding it, not at the Grade 1 level. And if you create the page in the wrong level, although it's possible to move it to another level, it's not an easy thing. So make sure you're in the right site before you say add a page. The other way that you can add a new page is directly in the page, in one of the pages of that site. Edit the page and put in a reference to that page, starting with the double square bracket, type in the page name, close the square bracket. Once you save that page, you can click on what looks like a broken link and it will allow you to create the page on the fly without having to go through the other options. Once you have a new page, the first thing you want to think about is, how do you want to do the text layout? Do you want to use one of the built-in text layouts from that drop-down of text styles? If you don't want to do one of the text styles, or maybe you want to begin with one of those and then add your own special formatting, remember you can always put a table inside one of the text areas, and by working with the columns and rows, come up with a custom layout. As you're adding content on the page, within any of the text areas, you can add the content directly. You can add images directly. You can add links directly, tables directly. But if you start anything with a double square bracket, it's going to think that you're trying to create a link to something. And either you're going to select one of the other pages in that site because they'll be left aligned in the pop-up box that appears, or you'll use one of the commands at the bottom, like view, to display all the items in a library or a subset of items in the library. Or if you want to display only a single and open a single document, then you would use the list command from that drop-down box. That pretty much is everything that's going to be in this section. Anybody have any questions before I turn it back over to Mike Adani, who's going to talk about templates? Yeah.
If you're trying to save a document, save over a document,
Mhm.
someone has it open and is making corrections in it, what would happen?
It would say that you can't save it.
Oh, okay.
You can't save it if someone else has the file open. Now, if you're the one that has the file open, obviously you can save it back. But if multiple people have it open at the same time, well, it depends on how you're editing. I was editing from inside Word, and it depends on the version of Word. If you're editing from Word, Office, Word web apps, I think it will save only your changes. But if you're trying to save it from inside Word directly, you may get an error message depending on the version of Word that everybody has and whether they checked it out. You notice I didn't use check in or check out anywhere in any of this. If they checked it out before they began their editing so that they had exclusive rights, you can't save back. And it doesn't matter how you opened it. If they have exclusive rights, you're stuck. And that's something that probably needs to be mentioned. When we talk about collaboration, we don't worry about publishing. We don't worry about check-in and check-out. That's something that's important when you talk about outward-facing pages. But for internal collaboration, we don't do any of that. Doesn't mean you can't. We just don't have it turned on. But when you go to edit a page, can you check it out? Sure. If you want to have absolute total control of the page while you're editing, you can check it out. No one else can make a change.